sometimes I remember driving to work and forgetting that cup of coffee and being really cranky about it. I wonder if you are the same, Erin.
Well, actually, just to put it out there, I'm not a coffee drinker.
Whoa.
And I don't have a morning drink besides water.
Oh, even though you dress like a latte today?
I dress like I'm dressed in latte-coloured clothing here, but no, not at all. But then again, here we are at Fresh Brew without fresh brew.
Without fresh brewed
Without
coffee.
fresh brew. I think this is a suggestion that we have to put up with our producer of the show. But then again, here we are talking about coffee, right? I mean, there's a lot about coffee. And I mean, coffee has been a prominent thing here now in Malaysia, I would say. There are so many coffee outlets. There are events involving coffee. I think there was a recent one that was going on, if I'm not mistaken, in the KLCC Convention Centre, if I'm not mistaken.
What kind of coffee is that?
Event. I'm not exactly sure. But it was an open space event in the Convention Centre where they had about coffee and everything. Maybe we should ask our guest on the show. You know, maybe he might know further, you know, because for me, coffee is, well, just another beverage, just another day. But for some people, it's more of like, if I don't get my cup of coffee, that's it.
Let's ask this guy. Yeah, because he is someone from the Malaysian Specialty Coffee Association, and he is the president. Welcome to the studio, KELVIN NGOW.
Hi, good
You're
morning.
looking like you've had your coffee this morning, have you?
Yes, I did. I had an Indonesian coffee this morning.
Ooh.
Fresh brew at home. Yeah.
Wow,
Fresh brew at home.
He's attacking us here
He
because we're
is
not
saying
providing.
that we should have coffee on the table, but we're definitely going to have it next time you're here. What's your favorite coffee, KELVIN?
My favorite coffee,
Excuse me.
because I do roast coffee and I learned roasting quite some time ago. So I've been around the world tasting a lot of coffee. One of my favorite are definitely Ethiopian, Guatemalan, Panama, and Kenyan.
Wow.
So typically these are my go-to.
Right.
I wish I can reciprocate and say that. Those are my favorite beans too, but unfortunately, I'm more of a kopi kampung kind of person, kopi gantang, and all that. That's my go-to.
Semua dekat kopitiam lah.
Kopitiam lah,
Yes,
yeah.
correct. So anyway, actually, I find this really intriguing because I've not heard, because I'm not a coffee drinker, neither, you know, but I've not heard of Malaysian Specialty Coffee Association, MSCA, and I want to know what that is about. Could you tell our audience at home what that is about? And also about how you got into coffee. Because some people do it out of passion, some people do it out of, I just want to stay awake for work, that kind of thing. So just tell us about that.
I think I start to go back a little bit. I started my business back in 1997 in Malaysia. So during those days, if you go to a hotel, if you order a cup of cappuccino, you get black coffee with some whipped cream. So for me, because I grew up for a few years studying in Australia, in Melbourne, so we know what a proper cappuccino or a proper espresso are. So we brought the culture from Australia and started a little business selling coffee. So for me, that was back in 1997. So moving along, then we noticed that the world is starting to have barista competitions. So, and Malaysia being Malaysia, we also want to participate lah. But we can't go because we are not a sanctioned country. You need to have some formal competitions, get it sanctioned. You need to write into WCE in America, and you need to get it sanctioned. So technically at that time, I think back in early 2000, I started the first barista competition. We call them some regional judges from Singapore to judge because I was the organizer. So, and there it took off. So because barista being barista, they are artists. So they like to show off and share their love, share their craft with their customers, especially when you have a cafe. They like to show the skill. So the competition is basically a stage for the barista to perform and showcase their craft. So I think then before we went to the world, we need to have a formal coffee association. That's how Malaysian Specialty Coffee Association was birthed. That was 11 years ago.
Wow.
And since then, we've been sending all our barista year in, year out to World Barista Competition, World Latte Art Competition, World Brewers Cup Competition, Siphon Competition. So our baristas are doing quite well. So I think we also had first latte art champion.
Nice.
World champion.
Latte art is the thing. I mean, latte art is like, people
thing.
just go to cafes just to have the latte art, you know, for Instagram purposes.
Yes. So, but you know, when a barista talks about the flavors, the audience doesn't know But because through latte art, the audience can see, it's more visual.
Sure.
So, and then they are fascinated by the creativity of the latte artists. And every time they go to a cafe, I want to see that art and stuff. So, but this is just a stepping stone for the birth and growth of the coffee culture in Malaysia.
And it's very interesting because you're talking about baristas, competitions, right? So these are the frontliners of a cafe, of a coffee shop. Usually the people would meet these baristas first when ordering their coffee. So I wonder maybe you can give us some observation on what is coffee culture, that's number one, and how do you observe its fostering here in Malaysia?
Okay. I think the coffee culture in Malaysia started, I think, back in the British Malaysia colonial days, where kopitiam coffee. Until today, you know, if you go up to drink kopi, it's still a high growth of kopitiam coffee in Malaysia. I think one of the most well-known one, I think, was Old Town White Coffee.
Of course.
Many years ago, I think they started in 1999 or something, and then they grew into a chain of a couple hundred outlets.
True.
So, and then subsequently it was sold. But the culture started drinking local coffee. Then obviously a lot of people like me went to study abroad, brought the culture of the Western style coffee, which is cappuccino, cafe latte, and brought it in Malaysia. And since then, I think the local coffee and the Western style coffee are growing simultaneously in Malaysia. And this Western style coffee pretty much are a driving force in the whole region. If you look at even Korea, China, Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, this culture is growing tremendously, very fast.
But you know, coffee, actually, talking about coffee, there are a lot of cafes now, a lot of outlets, there are many franchises, you know, people are spending millions on coffee. Because everyone is like, okay, we're going to work, I need to get a cup of coffee before I head there. Or I'm not sure if it's more of an aesthetic thing or, you know, it's something that people actually do. But then again, based on your observation, right, over the past 11 years of under MSCA, maybe you can tell us what is actually prospering. Like how is the coffee culture here in Malaysia? You've seen many outlets opening up and whatever not. So can you share a bit of your observation and your research?
Yeah, I think back in I think 2 decades ago, I think you have an emergence of a lot of Western coffee that came in the chain, like Starbucks, Coffee Bean, and Tea Leaf. That's just a foundation. Then in the last couple of years, you realize there's a huge growth in local brands like Zeus, like Gigi, like Richamo. So they see the opportunity to make it big by creating a local brand because the consumption of coffee is growing. So there's a lot of space for everyone. And we want to be able to, I would say, where you throw a stone, you find a cafe. That's the level of convenience we want to see. We are not there yet, but I think eventually we will get there. Coffee or tea, it's part of our life. So a lot of people actually kickstart the day with either coffee or tea. In exception, yours would be a water.
Mine would be water.
But typically in Malaysia...
Arene should not be in the studio right now with us. She cannot sit here, actually.
I'm a bad representative of the term fresh
of the coffee culture.
No, I mean, people do drink, typically Malaysian, a chocolate drink, a tea beverage, or a coffee beverage, right from the start in the morning. Just get you ready for work.
Yeah, and that's very interesting because when you mention a drink to kickstart your day, people usually go to your coffees, your teas, your warm waters, but you mentioned something about chocolate as well. And that is very synonymous with Malaysian culture of drinking Milo in the morning. I wonder, how is the coffee culture like in Malaysia? How is the consumption of beans? Do we Malaysians, do we favor the local beans more? Or is it the foreign ones that are getting more attention? How is it like over here?
It's a mixture. So even for me, obviously, I'm promoting Malaysian specialty coffee in the country. So if you ask me, I do drink local coffee as well. I do drink local kopitiam coffee. I feel that it's a separate sort of enjoyment and a separate sort of appreciation. It's like even sometimes you want to have an instant noodle, and you also go for your fine dining. So
Yeah.
But how do we, as locals, can have a chance to support these local beans? Is it possible for us to? Is there an outlet where we can get all these coffee local beans from? What would you advise for us if we
How
want
would
to
we know,
enjoy?
like, you know, that's local beans?
That's
How would we know that?
tricky part, because even a lot of local kopitiam coffee, the beans, the typical ingredients are EK, Robusta bean from Indonesia.
Yeah.
But if you go to Sabah, so in Sabah, most of the kopitiam coffee are coffee originally grown in Tenom. So if you go to Sabah, you drink a lot of local coffee. And Sabah also now grows, I think, probably a specialty coffee grown in Ranong area in Sabah called Sabarica. So they work with the local farmers, and then they grow, they process, and they cultivate. So that's the only specialty coffee I found from Malaysia so far. And in Johor, there's a farm, a cafe, a roastery called My Liberica, which you can enjoy. And it's a complete different species of coffee. And there's Liberica, and there's a visiting center down there you can visit, and you can enjoy our locally grown coffee there.
It's so cool.
Okay, and talking about like coffee beans, right? You know, with many different types of coffee beans, many different variations as well. What would you say is the best, or maybe in terms of your experience and your opinion so far, what would you say is the best coffee bean? And how would you describe a good cup of coffee?
I think it's quite well known for specialty coffee, a very high-end specialty coffee that's probably above 90 cup score in the MSCA score sheet. They auction quite expensively, and many of them are from Panama.
Oh, okay.
Panama grows a variety called geisha, not unassociated from the Japanese geisha, but it's a variety called geisha. And it's originated from Ethiopia. It's taken to Panama. They grow it, and the bean flourishes and tastes well there. If you're drinking a lot of high-end coffee, you'll find notes. If it's well roasted, you'll find notes of very floral, very fruity notes in when you brew it. So it's very pleasurable and very enjoyable to drink. And it's
Do you do that? Do you drink that on a daily basis?
No, I don't drink that on a daily basis. At home, I do have a variety of different coffee, and I do take them out and drink occasionally.
I can imagine your kitchen has like various different. It's all labeled. You know, this is a
it's
coffee bean. This is a certain type of coffee bean.
it's in my freezer, so they do tend to store well in the freezer, and I can consume it bit by bit now and then. Mostly on the weekends,
That's how someone who has the experience of 11 years of drinking coffee does it. I mean, obviously, but I wonder, let's say that, for example, if ARENE tomorrow were to go to her mama in the morning, and then she gets a cup of coffee, and then she falls in love with coffee, and she wants to find out more about the coffee culture,
Are you converting me, Nabil?
I'm trying to convert you. I'm trying to convert ARENE with this analogy. Let's hope it works. What if ARENE wants to start to get into the coffee culture tomorrow? Where does she start, and how does she do it? How should she go about it?
Okay, so to be accessible, you can also visit some of the local chains that's flourishing in the market, like Zeus, Gigi, Wichamo. But if you want to know more and try more special beans, you can visit places like 103 Workshop, Coffee Stain, Yellow Brick Road, just to name a few. That they do serve specialty coffee beans. And some of them even roast in the factory themselves. Typically, they're all micro roasters. So, and some of these places, you also can learn more about coffee brewing. There's also a number of coffee schools that you can Google up, and you can also know a bit more by signing up a class, a workshop, and stuff.
You know, we're talking about coffee culture, mainly highlighting on the rise of coffee culture. Because like I mentioned, there are a lot of franchises opening up, a lot of outlets opening up, a lot of different coffee. We're actually exploring on coffee. People are going really into it. So I just want to touch a bit economical-wise, you know, because the prices of coffee, I would say, It goes from a bit of a lower end where you can probably get at your local kopitiam, you know, on a every Sunday morning breakfast style. I'm from Ipoh, so I would say, yeah, you know, I'm gonna claim and say I love the coffee in Ipoh, but I don't drink it. I taste it.
You appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And of course, looking at, well, those is in the lower spectrum. We also have those that are in the high-end spectrum, you know, more of a broader franchises that also sell coffee. What do you think about the prices of coffee? You know, do you think it's relevant, and do you think it's, I would say, okay that the prices vary depending on the types of coffee, or how are the prices actually allocated? Is it based on like different coffee beans that they use, or the imports, or something like that? You know,
it's basically something for everyone. So whether you are a basic coffee drinker, that you don't need to know anything about coffee, you just enjoy the flavors. You can go to kopitiam, you can even go to convenience stores. But there are also places that you can go to really enjoy the creme de la creme, top of the range coffee that is grown with the name of farmer, with the name of varietal, roasted by so and so, and brewed by somebody who is a very professional at making your cup of coffee. So you can even tell them, I want something a bit more acidic. They'll recommend you something. I want something a bit more floral. They can recommend you something.
Wow.
That's cafe from entry to crazy level.
So it's like whether you want to spend that amount of money just for a good cup of drink, you know?
Yes.
But maybe once in a while it's all right.
I still feel that these are, what do you call it, affordable luxury.
Sure.
Even you want to drink the best of the best, can you afford to drink? Of course you can. It is not cheap, it's quite rather expensive, but at least if you want to try something incredible, you can still enjoy it.
Definitely. I mean, there's definitely a range, but of course to those who maybe perhaps cannot afford to get coffee from these franchises every day, maybe they can do so at home. They can start making coffee at home.
Yes.
For a first-time coffee enthusiast, I mean, what kind of apparatus would you recommend for them to have at home? Would a press be enough, or do you think it should be beyond that?
Or just a basic coffee machine?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, well,
I think basic coffee machine would be too much for the entry person. You can buy a machine all in one. You call fully automatic. You empty the beans, press a button, out comes. But after a while, after owning for a while, you find yourself wanting something that you can control better. Once you have more knowledge, typically that's how it is. I know when you start a hobby, and then the more you learn, and you get into a rabbit hole, the more you want to also upgrade. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I know Nabil has an ultimate debate question to us. The final debate question. I know you're really intrigued to know.
And we really need to.
I'm pretty sure the viewers at home as well. You know, they want to know from the president of Malaysian Specialty Coffee Association. You know, Nabil, I think I should ask this.
Yeah, please settle this debate for us once and for all, Kelvin. White or black coffee?
White or black coffee, it depends whether you're lactose intolerant.
Oh, no, that's the best answer I've ever got from that question. And definitely because he is the president of the Malaysian Specialty Coffee Association, Kelvin Ngo, thank you so much for coming to the studio.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
For those who want to get into the coffee culture, you guys can definitely take some of the pointers that Kelvin has suggested. I am intrigued now.
Whether I've converted into a coffee
yes,
drinker,
have you?
Well, I would
ARENE?
say almost. You got me there. You got me there.
Almost.
Yeah,
Okay,
almost.
okay. Maybe we can get her a cup
here.
of coffee after this, Kelvin. Yeah.
You probably have to bring her to a nice little cafe and let her sample.
That's an idea. All right. Thank you so much, Kelvin.